What is up, and welcome to the Bet Chicago Sports Podcast. I am Shane Jackson, and joining me today is Sean Hammond, an earlier edition of Sean. We are doing this show on a Wednesday. It's normally our Friday show because normally the Bears play on Sunday. Instead, they play on Thursday. Therefore, here we are on a Wednesday afternoon talking Bears as they get ready for their Thursday night football matchup against the Commanders. Sean, how's it going today?
It's going well. Yeah, we've had to push up our internal clocks here this week as we prepare for a Thursday game. Fitting everything in these last couple of days, but I'm excited. We're ready to go tomorrow.
I hope you're genuinely excited because I'm actually legit excited. There's a lot of obviously jokes being made ever since dating back to last Thursday's game between the Colts and Broncos in preparation for this game. But in a lot of ways, this is like my Super Bowl. I love when it is so bad that it might be good type of territory. I feel this way about like when Virginia plays college basketball against a random Big Ten team or literally any Big Ten football game whatsoever. I'm looking forward to maybe a game that's so ugly that it's beautiful in its own right. From your excitement level, I mean, how excited are you for this one?
Yeah, I mean, people love to hate on the Thursday night football matchups. That's been a thing historically, and this one certainly fits into that narrative. You got the two teams in the Bears and the Commanders who have losing records right now in the NFC, and they're struggling a little bit. Both teams desperately need a win here. After a couple of losses, and you know what? It's going to be fun. We're playing in prime time. We get to watch these guys play in prime time, and that's always a fun atmosphere. And we're going to be at Soldier Field tomorrow, and get to see the Bears play at home, and hopefully that gives them a little bit of juice.
And it opens up your weekend a little bit more. So there you go.
Yeah, hey, I can't complain about that.
Wins all around. Okay, let's start. It might be Wednesday, but it's the same concept every show. We want to decide how we're going to bet this game by the end of the show. But first, let's start with kind of the details that we need to know based off the latest injury report and just like who is playing and who isn't. What do you got for us today, Sean?
Yeah, so for the Bears, Jalen Johnson, who has missed the last 3 games with a quad injury, he was a full participant in practice this week. He's looking like he's going to be good to go. That's big news for the Bears, who really struggled to stop Justin Jefferson last week against the Vikings. They could have used him, and the Commanders do, despite the record and despite having Carson Wentz throwing the football, they do have some pretty good receivers. So that's going to be a big help on that end. And then on the other side of the ball, receiver N'Keal Harry looks like he's likely going to be back. He's been dealing with an ankle injury for the last 2 months. He had surgery in August, and he just returned to practice last week. So I'm a little bit more cautious on that one. I don't necessarily expect him to play a ton of snaps off the bat, but he's a guy that they're going to work back in there.
And when we dive into kind of specific angles of this game, we usually start with the quarterback, and I think that's where we need to start here. But it's been good as of late, right? Justin Fields has cleared his passing yards prop over the last 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago, it was the lowest prop ever for a quarterback, and it's slowly trending up right now. It's about 170 passing yards at Caesar Sportsbook, the official odds partner of Bet Chicago Sports. Sean, I want to get your perspective as someone who has been at both of these games and probably rewatched these multiple times. What have you seen from the last 2 weeks of Justin Fields compared to maybe what he was the first few weeks?
Yeah, well, I thought the big thing, especially in that Vikings game, was he had a clean pocket. He was only sacked twice, and he was able to feel where the pressure was coming from when he was pressured and get out of the way for the most part. Other than a couple of times, and that was a big thing. That I think even though the Bears lost Cody Whitehair at that left guard spot. Especially in that second half against Minnesota, he was able they were able to keep him clean. And that was a big reason why they came back in that football game and briefly took the lead. And we're in that thing the whole way after it looked pretty dire the first half there. So that's a big thing for Justin. And, I think it's obviously that connection with Darnell Mooney too. Both his biggest plays in both those games were passes to Mooney, and I don't expect that to change. He's the top receiver on this team, and Justin is going to keep throwing him the football.
Yeah, for those who paid attention to the best bets for the Bears-Vikings game, we were on the over for Justin Fields passing yards, and we bet on the Bears offense in general. We bet them they're over on the team total, and that came through, and we bet them to cover the spread against the Vikings. Didn't look great in the first half, but eventually they got there and were able to cover the 7.5-point spread in the end. So a few wins there. We'll try to get some wins now. Maybe not betting on the Bears offense in this game, but One angle I am curious about attacking is this kind of short week. So rookie head coaches have struggled on these short weeks. I think they're 8-18 against the spread. What I wrote up for shawlocal.com/bet. Matt Eberflus has said all the right things, I think, in his press conferences this week about, how they're going to manage this short week. But what are your general expectations kind of for this young team and this young coaching staff on what is a short week against the Commanders?
Yeah, it's interesting because Matt Eberflus hasn't been a head coach before, and so this is his first experience as the head coach, at least doing this. I know he's been around the NFL for a long time as a coordinator and as an assistant, but then you also got to look at Justin Fields. The Bears played a Thursday game last year on Thanksgiving, but Justin was hurt and he didn't participate in that game. So this is really his first Thursday night test, and certainly it's something to watch for. You can go back to that old saying where both teams, of course, have to deal with the situation. But, you're looking at a much more experienced quarterback in Carson Wentz than you are in Justin Fields. And I don't expect it to be much of an issue. I mean, Matt Eberflus has been around the league a long time. He certainly knows what his team needs to be prepared. And, they took advantage of being the home team this week, and they were able to get a practice in today, whereas other teams might be traveling that day before the game. And I don't know if it's going to be a big issue for this team, but anytime you're coming on short rest, that's a cause for caution.
Yeah, it's one of those things where trends, obviously, you can only take it with so much grain of salt there, because context is key, right? In all these situations, every situation is a little bit different. The Bears being at home obviously helps in this case, and playing an opponent like the Commanders helps as well. I mean, this is a winnable game. Maybe a lot easier to cover the spread when it's a game that you can win versus maybe when you're, a 10-point underdog. Ultimately, I did decide that how I was going to attack this angle was just play the Commanders in the first half. The Bears have struggled out of the gate to start the year, and every week they have yet to win a first half. And so I think that's the best way to maybe attack the short week narrative, is that, hey, Commanders get out to a lead, and maybe this coaching staff makes more in-game adjustments, and they're ultimately able to make enough plays to prevail in the end. Let's focus in on the defense, though. You wrote up a good story at Bears Insider about how this Bears team not getting a lot of sacks, obviously, but the underlying metrics say that those are to come. Do you expect that maybe to happen this week against Carson Wentz and his Commanders offensive line?
Well, I think this is certainly a matchup that is favorable in that area. The Carson Wentz is giving up a lot of sacks this year. I think he's given up 20 in 5 games. So, you look at that and you see an opportunity to get to the quarterback if you're the Bears. And that's something that they haven't done a great job of doing, at least in terms of finishing with sacks and tackles for loss. They haven't, been able to capitalize on those in these first 5 weeks. And, you look at some of the underlying numbers, and they are forcing quarterbacks to hurry. They have the most hurries in the league, and the highest percentage of hurries, but they're just not capitalizing with sacks. And when I hear that, that makes me think that these sacks are going to come. They're putting themselves in the right positions. They just haven't been able to finish it. And over time, I think that number is going to even out a little bit more. But this week is certainly a good time to start doing that, because you have a quarterback who's susceptible to giving up a sack and really to fumbling the football. He's fumbled 6 times. I know they've only lost it once, but when you're putting the ball on the ground, that's a recipe for disaster. And so I think the Bears, Robert Quinn, Travis Gibson, Dominique Robinson, the rookie, I think those guys on the edge are going to have some opportunities here against an old friend in Charles Leno playing left tackle, former Bear. They got to keep themselves in favorable positions. You see those big game-changing sacks coming on 3rd down when it's 3rd and long. And if the Bears aren't having success on 1st and 2nd down defensively, they're going to have fewer and fewer chances to do that.
You mentioned fumbles. Speaking of turnovers, the one prop I did play was Carson Wentz to throw an interception, which he has done, obviously, all but one game. And he has thrown multiple picks in 2 different games. I mostly wanted to ask your opinion on this because I remember vividly saying, hey, Aaron Rodgers throwing an interception has really juicy odds. I'm going to play that. And then you immediately gave me a harsh reality check about how bad of a bet that was. So what do you think of Carson Wentz throwing an interception bet? The odds, I think, are -121, so not as juicy. But in this matchup, what do you think the Bears secondary can do about maybe taking advantage of a mistake against Carson Wentz?
Well, yeah, two things come to mind, and you were spot on there. I mean, just look at the numbers. He's thrown a lot of interceptions already this season, all but one game so far this season. So, that tells me that that's a pretty good bet. I would take that. I would take those odds, and then the second thing is kind of going back to what we were talking about at the top with injuries. You got Jalen Johnson back there at cornerback for the Bears. Teams don't throw towards him, and they don't want to throw towards him. We saw that in weeks 1 and 2, particularly when the Bears played the Packers. They didn't throw the ball anywhere near him. So that's going to, let's say the Commanders decide, okay, we don't want to throw near Jalen Johnson. That's going to really limit where Carson Wentz can go with the football. And, you're looking at guys like Kyler Gordon and Kindle Vildor and Eddie Jackson, who's had a couple of interceptions already this season. I certainly think that the Bears, at least in these first 5 games, have done a pretty good job of causing turnovers. So I could certainly see Carson Wentz throwing a pick on Thursday.
Well, normally when we kind of talk about maybe the keys to the game, we're talking about can the Bears cover? But this is a chance where we're arguing about how the Bears can win this game, right? So when you are looking at this matchup, I mean, what do you think are the keys to maybe the Bears ultimately winning and getting back in the win column to move to 3-3 on Thursday with a win over the Commanders?
Yeah, look, this is a winnable game, and whether you're Washington or whether you're the Bears, you got this game circled on the calendar, and you're saying this is one that we need to have. And especially now that they're both kind of off to a little bit of rough starts, they both have losing records right now. If you want to get this season, just looking at 2022, back on track, you got to win this game. This is a big one. And I think that the keys, we've talked about it a little bit already, but that turnover battle, you got to win that turnover battle, and you can create some turnovers with a guy like Carson Wentz back there at quarterback. The other thing, though, is that this Washington defense has only created 1 turnover. So it seems that this is a team that you can protect the football against. And as long as you're not making any boneheaded plays out there, it seems like the Bears are going to be able to hold onto the football and not have any of those back-breaking turnovers. So if you win the turnover battle, you're going to be in good shape. And a lot of that has to start with that pass rush, like we were talking about with the Bears. Get some pressure on Carson Wentz, because he will make mistakes if he is forced to speed up a little bit.
From a betting perspective, how I attack this game, as I mentioned earlier, is Commanders money line in the first half. I do think there's a chance, though, like the Bears make some adjustments and they ultimately win this game in the end. I think what I officially predicted was the Commanders would win by like a 20-17 margin. But I do think that if you are betting this game, under is the way to go. Lean Commanders, but I don't know if I lean them that hard that I would take them. I want to get your prediction, though. What do you think is going to happen on Thursday Night Football?
Yeah, so I'm picking the Bears to win this straight up. I got them 21-17. A similar score, at least, as to what you're saying there. I'm a little bit worried about the weather in this one. It's been rainy here in Chicago today and yesterday. It's looking clear tomorrow, but it's going to be cold and windy. So I don't know how that might affect things going out there in terms of just the overall scoring. But I do think this is a game that the Bears can win, and I think they are going to pick up this win at home with the home crowd, and certainly they need one after a couple of losses here.
And would certainly make Thursday Night Football more enjoyable for Bears fans if they were able to pull off a win. This was great, Sean. Thank you so much for joining me today. Make sure you are following him at Sean_Hammond. He is our Bears insider. He does a lot of great work for ShawLocal.com. Normally I would get into my bets, but because it's earlier in the week, there is really no bets. I played the Ravens -4.5, but that is the only bet I've made for NFL Week 6. So we will just fast forward to Thursday Night Football for a Bears-Commanders matchup. And that'll do it for this edition of the Best Chicago Sports Podcast. For Sean Hammond, I'm Shane Jackson. Thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.